segments. One of the segments is about the force, what is there to just start with. And second is about IT Act, which I think Pawan Dibal will go in deep into the kind of what is covered, what is not covered. But only I will touch upon the physical real world entities, which is not covered in IT Act. The third is on the kind of cyber forensics and the cyber crimes definitions and forensics aspect of it. Then fourth is information security in general. So this is, I think, my thought I would like to share with you today. One is, I think, ever since man started using technology for their livelihood or living things, they are in a technological trap. So really, I think the kind of thing, they are not in a position to come out of that, but they have to find out the ways and means of protecting themselves. So this is what I think one of the famous quotes says. The second quote is very interesting. It's about the law. The law is the last interpretation of the last law by the last judge. So naturally, I think the law is a kind of thing where interpretation matters than law by itself. So very interesting thing, when technology is growing, what kind of laws, legal system we should have. Legal system also should evolve along with the technological basis. Then third is in terms of privacy, because unfortunately in this country we don't have a privacy law. But the privacy is one of the things where technology law collides, where the privacy starts, about clash. So this is, I think, another interesting thing which we thought that we should share with you. Then fourth is in virtual space, netizens exist, not citizens. So how do you identify a map of a citizen which is netizen? There is a major issue of identification. Because the fellow who does it, the act, may be a netizen, but how do you identify a physical mapping to a citizen so that the investigation crime, I think, can be punishing him further. Cyberspace is dynamic, it's not static. So it's undefined, it's exponential. So we are going to see the kind of cyberspace as a virtual space where anything, anywhere, anytime can happen. So we have to see the kind of dynamism in that thing. So we have to work out the kind of things. Wherever technology is going to be used for this kind of investigation purposes, we should go in the kind of dynamism of the cyber activity. Then in terms of, see, it needs dynamic laws, not static law. It's not that IT Act 2000 will do everything for you. It is not RT Act will do everything for you. Maybe possibly we should look at a kind of dynamic laws into various segments, which is going to enact, maybe enacted in the short time to come, or amended the existing acts, so that we will be in a position to do a lot of things in the cyber activity with safe and with confidence and trust. This is what the whole idea was, cyberspace to be more trustable. Then in terms of what is not covered in the Cyber Act, let us just give the ideas, because Pawan Dugal will be in a position to explain more in legal terms. One is, I think, contracts and arbitrations. So electronic contracts are signed today. So how will you do the kind of arbitration contracts, where you will go, what kind of things you should take care of, safety and security aspect of it is not covered in the IT Act today. Next is in terms of rights management. What rights we have? Digital rights management is not covered at all. Because where electronic publishing started, electronic subscription started, electronic copyright acts and patents are there, violation of these IPRs. So I think real rights management is not covered to the extent desired. Maybe possibly this is a new area of work which is supposed to take care of. Then in terms of electronic archives, I think we are all storing information in electronic storage. So what kind of act which is going to cover what information stored at any point of time is retrieved, and what is retrieved is authenticated? It's a major issue on that. So we are really worried about the information preservation digital media, because media management is not covered there to the extent desired in the IT Act. So we thought that maybe possibly that one area where we have to safeguard ourselves, because we do share trade, we do have electronic stocks, we do have shares in electronic form. We are worried about what kind of regulations, rules, and IT Act tax regulations can consider. But there is no single regulatory authority today in the country. There are multiplicity of regulatory authorities for every function we have. So the cyber things is going to be penetrating all sectors. So what kind of regulation we should have, what kind of acts we should have is a kind of a question, is a really thrilling area. Next is in terms of electronic money. See, I think we are all using smart cards, we are using smart money, but electronic money issuance, settlement, reconciliation, the flow money management is not covered, because electronic EPSS Act of RBI is waiting for the Parliament to be enacted. So we have an Act of Nationalism which is modified, RBI Act is modified to some extent. So we are trying to do electronic transactions today, but with the safety and security, whatever is there, as covered by them in the electronic form of transactions, electronic form of flow of money, of control of money, or settlement of money. Next is what we have is Information Protection and Privacy Act. I think this is what I think he has talked about. We will not go into details because there's a gap in that kind of coverage. Maybe possibly I think remote access through any device. I think multimedia and any device, mobile devices, a lot of issues of security and safety comes into picture. We are in a position to see the kind of things which is needed in terms of for the investigating agencies as well as in terms of managing agencies or service providing agencies. We have to worry about that. This is another area of gray area where which is not covered. Then in terms of acceptable technologies, I think our IT Act is not technology neutral act. It specifies a technology. But what acts really should have is technology neutral. Because that's what I think we are trying to do the amendment. But it should be in executive powers than going to the act, which is going to take time for any amendment of the act in the parliament or assembly, right? Then in terms of electronic notarization, I think we do physical notarization. Notarization is acceptable in any form where the deeds are there. But electronic notarization is a concept which is also to be introduced. How do you introduce this? It's a major issue. What kind of legal system we have is a question. Because today you have pattas in electronic form given by the states, but in fact it's not recognizable in the court of law. The Land Registration Act has been changed for the states to cover this kind of gap. But still, interpretation of original, near original is a question of interpretation of 65 and 65A in the Act. So we have to worry about the kind of interpretation of electronic documents given you as a physical authority where you can do anything with that. Then in terms of, cyber crime and fixing responsibility and accountability. I think this is a very interesting area where we have to worry about e-policing, right? So actually in terms of things of electronic transaction which happens, today I think it is become internet is a medium of delivery. Internet is a medium of transaction. Web is the medium of interface. So if you are going to do the kind of web and internet, it's going to be used as a kind of a delivery of mechanisms where who is to be accountable in case anything happens or anything fraud happens or anything kind of abuse happens or illegal access happens. Then the kind of things what happened to the multimedia DPS case is really facing the responsibility. The EB owner is not one of the fixer of the act which they used it. But really who is accountable? Service providers, the web hosters, the application providers, or the kind of users. The kind of things is a very complex exercise where we are trying to see how to fix responsibility and accountability in terms of cyber transactions, in terms of cyber access, in terms of usage of resources in cyber media. Next point which I thought I will cover is in that IPC today in the police parlance is a very broad classification. It's not a narrow classification. The cyber requires a kind of very, very narrow specifications of the act. In fact, today cyber crimes are not universally defined. Cyber crimes are defined as per the law, whatever is defined as a kind of crime, right? And penalty has been associated with that. But really, what is a cyber crime is no universal acceptance on this. In fact, our IT Act is only jurisdiction is no jurisdiction at all. But really, all acts are jurisdiction state-wise or federal-wise. So we have to worry about the kind of cyber activity which is not borderless, where we have to do the border and the jurisdiction aspect of it to be covered. So I think there is a major issue on the kind of initiation which we should take is cyber treaty, either bilateral or multilateral. I think this started happening. I think we have to work on the kind of cyber treaty to accept what kind of crime is committed from one soil can be punishable in anywhere. So because cyber persons are not to be trustable, you can do anywhere, from anywhere access, transaction can be done, delivery can be done anywhere else. So these are the kind of things where we have a problem there. Then easily I think no standard tools are specified. What kind of tools can be used for evidence creation, collection, collation, organization, presentation, and acceptable to judiciary? Really no tool standardized. So really I think there is a major issue on forensics. And really forensics tools are of course for IBA users, we also use in CBI. But really I think the tools which is required for the kind of evidence collection, collation, organization, presentation, and analytics, and interpretation acceptable to judiciary is a major issue. I think this is a kind of concept where forensic tools are there. Even for example, you take CDAC forensic tool which has been tested by the police has been acceptable, but 1,000 cases in Kerala not decided by the court. They are not happy with the evidence as created, or they are still doubtful that the evidence created are correct or not. So really I think the kind of things, even if you use a sophisticated